If the driver seems quite agitated, then you'll know chances are the vehicle is on fire, in which case, in Al Jr.'s case, the pit marshal who threw the bucket of water on him probably saved him from looking like Niki Lauda.
Motoring 92 is brought to you by Quaker State. Quaker State, one tough motor oil.
Hello everybody. Well, if you're a regular viewer of this program, then you know that at least once a year the fire department is going to make an appearance, and for a couple of reasons. First, I gotta confess, I'm a frustrated firefighter. I've been chasing fire trucks like this all my life. But more importantly, the fire department has a lot to teach us all about the deadly personality of fire, not only in the home, but as we're about to see, also on the highway and at the racetrack. For the second year in a row, full-time fireman and part-time race car driver Jim Kelly has organized the Learn Not to Burn program. Racetrack marshals are given hands-on instruction on fighting car fires, proper use of fire extinguishers, driver extrication, and first aid. Firemen from Scarborough and Toronto volunteer their services.
This whole program is based on two things: to educate these track marshals on how to fight fires and to make it a little safer out in the racetrack, and to raise funds for the Scarborough General Hospital's burn unit. We're expecting to be just shy of $20,000 for 1 year now as our cumulative total.
His hand's burning, or his arm or leg is burning, and you're going to put some dry powder on it. It's going to do nothing. It's still cooking, just like that roast. Get the water on it. Get him cooled down, as much water as you can, and then get him to the hospital as quickly as you can. They'll put a saline solution, which is really water, okay? But you got to get water to cool down so they don't cook right down to the bone.
Guys, into a wall, you may not have any choice.
My experience in racing last year in the Firehawk Series, the only thing I did notice was that a lot of the cars were underhood car fires, and we'd like to approach that situation and have them get a handle on that, because as you know, a fire extinguisher is just strictly a first aid device. If we can get there in time and get it out with a dry chem fire extinguisher, we've got the problem solved.
I want you to do your test before you get on the gravel. Do your test before you get on the gravel, okay? Pull a pin, check the gauge, test, let your partner know you're going. Go ahead. Not too close!
Again, the main thing to keep in mind is if the driver can help, allow the driver to help. Our main concern is spinal immobilization. Make sure the neck and head don't move.
What we're doing in this area is retraining our rescue people in extricating drivers from both Formula car and a sedan, the kind of cars that we run in the club races at Mosport and club races at Shannonville. These people have been trained in CPR and first aid, and we're just giving them a retraining using special hand tools for extrication of the driver from a car, staying away from the high-tech jaws of life kind of thing, and learning to use just plain hand tools.
A little higher. Further up higher.
Someone in there? Whoever's doing the rescue at the time is going to show you his way. The biggest thing you have to remember when you're doing it is glass splitters. Glass splitters coming out. Okay?
There are two easy ways for you guys being corner workers to determine whether there in fact is a fire in the Indy vehicle or not. The easy one is just to watch the driver. If the driver seems quite agitated, and you see the steering wheel go flying and the gloves go flying and the driver in much of a panic, then you'll know chances are the vehicle is on fire. In which case, in Al Jr.'s case, the pit marshal who threw the bucket of water on him probably saved him from looking like Niki Lauda.
Now you're going to see when we do this, if it works the way it's supposed to, they will not be able to put that fire out with the fire extinguisher. Keep it down. Get it off.
glass so everyone knows. Your purpose is it's not going to open the door. Keep going inside of it. Ready? Okay, lifting rope, lifting. Convertible.
Yeah, what we found is that the more, it's just like with the fire department, we're training and retraining all the time. If we can keep training these people and going over it again and again and again, it's going to make it that much easier and that much better for them to handle each emergency situation.
Keep going, back, lean down, lean down. Okay, you got it.
It takes 10 1992 cars to produce the pollution that comes out of a single 1982 model. And soon that ratio will go up even more. California pollution laws have prompted auto manufacturers to produce vehicles that pollute much less.
The Ford Escort Mercury Tracer that we have certified is the first of those ultra-clean cars. It is the cleanest car that we have ever approved for mass production. Most important of all, this car is at least 4 years ahead of its time with actual emission levels that some cars won't meet until 1997.
Performance from the clean-running 1.9-liter 4 should not change. And Ford says it won't pass the extra cost on to consumers. The low-pollution Escort Tracers will debut in California and come to Canada sometime in the future.
Time for an update on one of our long-term test vehicles. This week we look at the Nissan Maxima SE. So far we've put 6,000 kilometers on the Maxima and have had the first service completed. Now the cost of the first service should have been $48.36, but we lucked into a special and so got it for $32. Overall we've been averaging 12.8 litres per 100 kilometers or 22 miles per gallon. However, the last 4 tankfuls, the mileage has risen to a respectable 25 miles per gallon average, indicating the engine is beginning to bed in properly. The parts basket portion will give you an idea of the cost of some of the more frequently replaced parts. Notice the cost of 6 spark plugs. Just as well you only have to change them every 100,000 kilometers. The total cost for normal routine maintenance for the Maxima for 1 year or 24,000 kilometers would be $537.72. Now this includes all parts, labor and applicable taxes. The only minor glitch we've run into on the Maxima is to do with the air conditioning system. Now on the top of the compressor there's a little electrical connector here. It supplies power to the electromagnetic clutch on the front of the compressor. Somebody didn't push it all the way home. I did, and from that time on everything's been hunky-dory.
Test Drive with Graham Fletcher.
This week on Test Drive we look at the 1993 Infiniti J30, a vehicle that Infiniti refer to as a personal luxury sedan. Now this specific model is the J30T, the T indicating that this vehicle comes equipped with a touring package. The touring package consists of Nissan's super high-cast four-wheel steering system, revised suspension rates and a classy set of BBS wheels with a rear deck spoiler. The J30 comes with fully independent suspension. The touring model uses the same setup but gets springs that are about 10% stiffer and sway bars that are about 1 mm smaller. The latter reduces harshness. The result is a taut but compliant setup that offers better than average handling characteristics. To complement this, Nissan have included their super high-cast four-wheel steering system. The benefits were immediately obvious during the pylon test, but barely detectable out on the open road. In a nutshell, the system initially turns the rear wheels in the opposite direction to the front wheels. This improves the turn-in response. It then switches the rear wheels to steer in the same direction as the front. This improves mid-corner stability and stops excessive turning. Under the hood is a variation of the 300ZX's 3-litre V6 quad-cam 24-valve unit. Output is rated at 210 horses and 193 pounds-feet of torque. This level of power is always welcome. On the skid pad, we race through the 100k mark in just over 8.5 seconds. The only transmission available is a 4-speed automatic with overdrive. Both the engine and transmission are operated via sophisticated electronic control modules. Unlike many, these two interface to ensure a prompt response and that the trans shift shock at wide open throttle is minimal. The brake system is comprised of 4-wheel ventilated discs complete with an anti-lock feature. Stops averaged a scant 114 feet from 80k. The stops, as you would expect, were straight, controlled and precise. Again, the fact that ongoing refinements to all ABS setups ensure that the system only intervenes when absolutely necessary. Automobile designers tend to get very passionate about their work, and Jerry Hirschberg, the director of Nissan's design studio in California, is certainly no exception. He says the general theme of this vehicle is an ellipse with an arc scribed through it. Now you can pick up the arc running through the fenders, through the doors, and finishing off with a nice sweep at the rear end. You pick up the elliptical theme through the door cut. Now the reason they adopted this design was to give the vehicle a balanced feel. As you can see, the front and rear end tend to be about the same height, which is a definite departure from the wedge theme. The interior of the J30 is as classy and refined as the exterior appearance. In the rear there's reasonable room for 2 adults, 3 would find it rather squashed. Up front the passengers are treated to 8-way power seats that provide reasonable comfort. I say reasonable because they lack an adjustable lumbar support, something they need. The driving position is excellent, with all controls being very easily accessed. The climate and radio controls are the model of simplicity. They are well placed and so easy to use that after a very short time with the car, you can operate them relying solely on peripheral vision. The dash has a clean, uncluttered appearance that is highly legible and very easy on the eyes. The power window controls are conveniently placed. The thing I liked was the oversized single button for the driver's window. The power releases for both the trunk and the fuel filler door are located on the left side armrest rather than on the floor. Again, common sense prevails. A run round the safety items finds adjustable seatbelt anchors, a center sun visor and dual airbags. The nice part about the passenger side airbag is that Infiniti have managed to retain the glove box. My pet peeve on the J30 has to do with the trunk. First of all, the liftover is rather high. Secondly, as this bag illustrates quite well, the opening is not very large and nor is the capacity. But I think the thing that's going to hurt them most of all is they've neglected to put a pass-through into the rear. That's become very common on a lot of cars today. Anyway, now to the scoreboard for a rundown on the 1993 Infiniti J30T. With 210 horses at your right foot, there is certainly no lack of power. The nice part being that the engine comes on cam at about 3,500 RPM, which is exactly where you need the power. We required just over 8.5 seconds to eclipse the 100k mark. The suspension is taut enough to provide good handling, yet supple enough to provide adequate comfort. I'm still not convinced about the validity of the 4-wheel steering. I honestly didn't notice any difference on the open road. Now some would suggest this is a sign of a good system. I am not one of those. The large ventilated discs provide excellent fade-free stops, with the ABS supplying security and stability. The J30 is a very comfortable car, from both the ride and seating side to the fact that this quite simply is a nice car to drive. Wind, road and engine noise is minimal. During the road test we averaged 12 litres per 100 kilometres or 23.5 miles per gallon. Not bad considering vehicle weight and performance. The J30 is a winner, giving Infiniti dealers an ideal intermediate step between the G20 and the Q45. It can also be mistaken for nothing less than a 4-door family-oriented 300ZX.
How quickly can a fire spread in a car on the highway or at the racetrack? Well, later on, this old Dodge Aspen is going to show us how quickly and how deadly an automobile fire can be. But first, we're going to head to the garage and join Motoring 92's mechanic, Bill Gardner.
When you watch a track and field event or maybe a speed skating event on TV, you've probably noticed that the starting lines may be staggered for each competitor, or halfway through the event they switch lanes crisscross to equalize that advantage that the guy in the inside lane has over the guys in the outside lanes. Now, how does that relate to a car? Well, when we go around a curve in a car, that inside tire has to slow down a bit and the outside tires have to speed up a bit to go around that same curve. Now, if it's a driven axle on a car, we're trying to drive both those wheels ahead, but they have to be able to turn at slightly different speeds. So as we go around that curve, the inside wheel slows down a bit and that outside one has to speed up. Now, that's accomplished in a car by a component we call the differential, or you may know it better as the rear axle. It allows that inside wheel to slow down a bit. Let's have a look at just how it works. Now, we're using a rear-wheel drive vehicle today, and we've already removed most of the bolts and the oil from this assembly. Now, all the parts that I'm going to show you here today would be exactly the same on a front-wheel drive vehicle or an all-wheel drive vehicle. They're just housed a little bit different and located in different areas of the car, but the action's very similar. Now, we can see the pinion gear deep in the axle right here, and that's meshed to our crown gear right here, okay? Those two are meshed together. Now, when the vehicle's going straight down the road, the action is something like this, okay? Crown gear and pinion turning, and this spool assembly right here turning basically as one. Now, when we want to go around a curve, or if we get the car stuck in the snow, for example, we're going to see a lot of action in these four gears here. These are the side gears, and they're splined to our axle shafts here and here. And the spider gears that walk around these side gears and give us the differential action. Now, for example, our right rear wheel stuck in the snow and our left wheel spinning like crazy, that would be the action right there. Okay, you can see a lot of movement in those smaller gears in the center, and the crown and pinion are still turning as well. Now, when we go around a curve, the action's very similar to that, but we'd have both of those side gears turning and the spider gears turning at a little bit different speed. Now, all the components involved in a differential are very expensive components. They're made of high quality steel. Most of them are machined. There's some expensive bearings, and it's very labor intensive to rebuild one or even assemble it. There's a lot of shimming required. So it's an expensive proposition. But by the same token, it's also very durable, and if it's treated properly, it can last the life of the car. So if you need it to repair or replace one, a used one from a wrecker's is a viable alternative because it's quite often still good when the car rusts out and falls apart. But as you can see in the example of this one got stuck in the snow and the guy just kept pushing it till he exploded it. We've chewed up all the spider gears. One's completely exploded and missing. And the left side gear is the teeth are all chewed off it. We can see one of the bearings and spacers here just dangling around. And this unit is essentially ruined. We've chipped some of the teeth on the crown gear, we've chipped the pinion, and we've split open the spool here. So this is pretty well junk with the exception of the housing. Now, the things to keep in mind here as far as maintaining this assembly, there isn't a whole lot to do, but you should periodically check the oil level, make sure that it's topped up properly and the oil's of a good quality and clean. That would be something that you do at an oil change interval. And also check periodically for any leaks. If you see oil dripping from underneath the car, this assembly could be leaking. You could have a seal or gasket gone, and eventually it'll run out of oil and burn itself out. And remember, if you get the car stuck in mud or snow, don't overdo it with the throttle. Rock it back and forth gradually, or get some people to help you push it out of the snow, or get a tow. Because if you overdo it and use too much throttle, you've probably heard people in the wintertime just buzzing the heck out of these things. They'll just sing. Eventually, you're going to ruin that thing. And if and when you do, you're going to be in for a big bill like this guy was. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 92.
We're back at the training center of the Scarborough Fire Department. With me once again is Jim Kelly. And Jim, behind us is a beat-up old car, and you're about to do something with it. Tell us what you're going to do and why.
What we're going to do, Brad, is we're going to use the EOD team from the Armed Forces to set a charge to ignite the interior on this car. What we're trying to show is how quickly a car with all the plastics and different synthetic materials can actually take before the car becomes fully involved with fire.
First of all, what are they putting on it and how's it all going to be done?
Okay, we're using methanol as a fuel just to ignite this. We want to show quickly, just for a very short period of time, it's going to show no flame, even though you'll see the heat waves. It's going to be ignited electronically by a small little fuse. and the EOD is doing that. And we're just going to wait for it to roll over. Pump 10 is going to go in with the foam and put it out. We got to take every precaution we can. This is a car, it's a fire. There's all sorts of toxic chemicals in there. We want to make sure nothing happens.
Well, this could be a car on the highway or a car at the racetrack?
Yeah, either way. There are classes in racing where cars have interiors. So what we're trying to do is graphically illustrate to these marshals how little time they have to get to the car and to get the fire out.
What would you say to people in a car if they think all of a sudden there's a fire? What's the best advice?
Best advice is to get it over and get safely away from the vehicle as soon as you can.
Well, the first thing again is the particular material that the vehicles are made out of, or what the interior is made out of. A lot of stuff now is so chemicalized, for making up a word, that you never know what it is, and it burns a terrible black toxic smoke. And it's particularly dangerous to the occupants if they're not already out.
Station wagons, they're perfect family vehicles, but they can also be death traps for your kids. I'll be back in Kenzie's Corner in a moment.
Kenzie's Corner with Jim Kenzie.
I saw a station wagon very much like this one on a highway the other day. Mom and Dad in the front seat, what appeared to be the grandparents in the back seat, and they're all wearing their seat belts, and there was a 5-year-old boy standing up in the back, peering over the back seat, ready to be launched through the windshield as soon as Daddy hits the brakes. I mean, don't these people realize how dangerous this is? I mean, we've got laws that require you to buckle your kids up, but do we really need laws for something like this? I mean, did this family figure it wasn't going to happen to them? If so, why were they wearing their seatbelts? Now, I'm not just angry on the behalf of this kid, but it's our taxpayers' money that's going to support this kid for the rest of his life if he's hurt in a serious accident. Now, I don't want you telling me that your kids are too active, that they get bored sitting in the car. I've got 4 kids. I'll stack their activity level up against anybody's kids. But my kids know the car doesn't start until their seatbelts are buckled. So maybe we can hope for is that the next generation of car drivers will be smarter and safer than we are. I'm Jim Kenzie.
So you want to be a firefighter, eh? I thought I did, Captain. I'm not sure now. You know, in the television business, I guess we call this a wrap. Today, though, I think we call this a setup. But either way, we want to congratulate and thank Jim Kelly and the Scarborough Fire Department for their efforts today. The result, more educated track marshals, and therefore, safer racetracks across this country. Well, that's it for now. We'll see you next week for more stories about cars, fire trucks, and the people who drive them. Am I doing this right?
Motoring 92 has been brought to you by Quaker State. Quaker State, one tough motor oil.